Great. I think this is a good time to get started. Let's stay on track. We're so glad that you're joining us for our conversation today. So many of you, you took the time to join us for your lunch break, and we really appreciate it. We've been hosting a 3-part webinar series, and it's all about change, adapt to thrive in 2021. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. How the changes that these amazing panelists chose and the things that they went through and some of their experiences will help us all thrive in 2021. So we're glad you're here. We want this to be interactive. So please feel free to use the chat feature down below. You can see if you click on that, you can write in questions that you'd like to address to the panelists. And I will address them live, or we'll also have somebody who's supporting us who can answer some of your questions as well. So we want to make sure that you feel heard and that you get some real amazing strategies and takeaways from today's discussion. In fact, if you could just put in the chat right now before we get started, tell us the takeaway that you'd like to walk away from our chat today. What is the burning question that you have, or the main thing you'd like to? Go ahead and put it in the chat right now, and we'll take a look at those as well. So my name is Sianna McKinley. I am the Business Development Manager for Monarch Staffing, and I have the privilege of moderating today's discussion. We have some amazing panelists joining us, so let's get started and introduce them. So my first panelist, if you can look on your screen on the right, is Marc Coleman. And Marc Coleman is the founder and the CEO of the Tactile Group. His award-winning agency is also a certified minority enterprise, and as well as the LGBT enterprise as well. Marc he is a leader in his community. He is also very much involved in leading the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and am very involved in the Chamber of Commerce of Philadelphia. So Marc, we're glad that you're here today. I love that I love the way you say that you're designed to give a damn. So you actively seek to have whose goal is to inspire the quality of life for everyone. So we love that about the Tactile Group. Thank you for joining us today, Marc Coleman.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. And we have today Becky O'Laughlin. So Becky O'Laughlin is the Chief People Officer, Chief People Officer of Amplity Health. And she brings over 20 years experience with her HR background. She has also worked with QVC and the Curate Group. So Becky, I'm excited that you're here today. I know you're also an avid runner, and you bring a lot to this discussion. We're looking forward to talking with you today, Becky.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Absolutely. And we also have today Laura Kasper. Laura Kasper is the CEO and the founder of Monarch Staffing. She brings more than 30 years experience in the industry, and she is a leader. She is also helping by being the board chair of Girls Spark, which it was started by her daughter, and it is an exciting It is a nonprofit that is led by her daughter and is helping for girls to overcome social challenges. Laura is a Brava Award winner, and she also is featured from being a distinguished alumni from both the colleges that she has been part of, Delaware County Community College and Westchester University as well. So she is very well known in the area and an expert in this. And we're thankful that you're here today, Laura, for joining us.
Thank you, Sianna. It's great to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, absolutely. And we also have Brian Stocker, and Brian Stocker brings wealth of experience as he has been with West Pharmaceuticals, a VP in HR for, he's been with them since 2009. And Brian is also, he's in charge of process excellence for West Pharmaceuticals. And he is in charge of over 5,000 employees. So I know we can learn a lot from his experience, and he brings a lot to leadership for this discussion as well. So thank you all for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. And I can't imagine, if we could just all close our eyes and imagine what life was like in, say, January or February of 2020. And then if we could look at it again now, we just want to get a feel for an idea of exactly kind of where are you right now with your company in terms of the footprint and, just get an idea of kind of what things look like right now. So we'll start today with Marc. Why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about what it looks like in your company in 2020.
Well, so Tactile, we are a software development company working primarily with the federal government. And the type of work we do can be fully remote. And before COVID hit, we had already kind of started to go in that direction. We had a couple of employees that were working for us in California and Texas across different time zones. We had kind of an infrastructure in place. So when our Philadelphia office went fully remote, it was kind of like we were saying this earlier, just kind of a slight shift for us. Where really we were well kind of equipped to quickly adapt and roll with the new reality of being fully remote. So we had, we already been using Slack. We already been using kind of shared online folders and resources through Google. So for us to be dispersed was not that big of a deal. What did have to change is how we kind of reinforced our culture, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we had the infrastructure in place, and the shift was actually almost seamless for us.
Oh, that's exciting. We'll get a little bit more into also some of the ways that you communicated some of the changes in the shift. And now I'm going to turn the attention to Brian. Tell us a little bit about your current footprint of what's going on in your business as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we have about 10,000 employees around the world in about 25 locations. And about 80% of those people have actually been coming in every day. I mean, we are a manufacturing company, and we actually manufacture components and devices to deliver injectable drugs. And actually our products are on all of the COVID vaccines. So we are on the front lines, and we really need to keep our operations running. And so, we've had to really make sure we keep our people safe and well. And so we can, satisfy our customers and our patients. The other, I would say the other 20% of the population, we've gone, we've only had the critical essential people in the workplace. And so everybody else has been virtual for the most part. And we've proven that we can run the company virtually. So that's good news. And, but, previously we were a traditional workplace, go in Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, have an assigned workspace. And I think a silver lining in this is that we are going to be going to a hybrid workplace. And I think, people are going to be a lot more comfortable with that now than they would have been, prior to the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we all made quick adjustments, and that is definitely something that Becky, you can speak to this definitely because of being a chief people officer, and you came in, I believe this all happened. You were very new in your organization. I think some of our audience members can relate to being kind of newer and then having to lead through this as chief people officer. That was really a big burden that you did. And I'd love you to tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting year to be any part of HR. I started with Amplity Health. So Amplity Health, we have about 800 people globally, mostly in the US and in the UK. And we support our pharma clients. We partner with them on the commercialization process through, consulting, building teams, starting from, medical affairs and some of the work with our MSLs to commercial sales teams and kind of everything in between. So the footprint of our organization, we have client teams all across the United States and actually across Europe and some even in Asia Pacific. A lot of folks, more of our folks are field or remote than in office or corporate office, but we have about 200 that sit between three office locations. So, similar to Brian, there were, some that had the, every day come into work, 8 to 5, others that were more used to engaging with our clients in a very active manner, although remote from our office, not remote from the work that they engaged in. So it was certainly a learning adjustment across the board. I joined, to your point, Sianna, just in December. I got about 2.5 months in, meeting some people in person, before the world went remote. And we certainly had to shift quickly. I came into the organization after a carve out, so it was also standing itself up. There were no internal communication practices. There were no engagement practices. There was no diversity, equity, and inclusion committee in place at the time. So a lot of what we mapped out in the first 2 months of the year, we just really had to pull forward. And a few, namely, obviously connection with the employees immediately was of foremost urgency, and making sure that we were, to the degree that we could, providing clarity on what we know, what we don't know, what we're going to do. And so many times you're sending communications out that just had no specific direction, but just kind of connecting to align and let everyone know that we're dealing with the same questions. Here's what we know and we can react to, and here's what we can't. But a few quick things I'll mention. I think it's part of what we wanted to share in terms of internal communications and how we used that to overcome some of the barriers as we navigated through these changes. We quickly pulled together a company newsletter. Again, this is not hugely innovative, but what we found is that people really we were trying to identify as many engagement touch points as we could. Very quickly, our focus was on engagement as well as on wellness as people adjusted to what these changes were that we were dealing with. And I actually found, which I, sitting here a year later, that wow, how resilient people are. We've learned a lot about ourselves, I think, in this past year. But we everything that we did, we didn't have a big pocketbook to pull from to, pull things together, but we were able to pull together a company newsletter where we were getting contributions from employees. So it wasn't just pushing information, but we were engaging them and having them become a part of, sharing stories and the way that folks were working remotely, and trying to create a fun platform for people to, show some of the ridiculous things that were happening across the organization, all the pets that you were meeting, the kids that were joining your call, like whatever, it's like anything you could think of was happening. So we really used the company newsletter to create a more fun platform for the organization to engage. We stayed really close with folks through pulse surveys, like checking in on what's working well about remote working, what's not. Of course, the first time we did it, we never thought we'd be doing it for a year, but we still are. And I think that the outreach. So another thing I saw shift, and I knew this was different even from before I joined, we really engaged the leadership team to reach out, almost random acts of reach out. And we would have them, we would just find people that weren't necessarily part of their teams. Some would send emails, some would schedule a quick one-on-one with somebody that they didn't even know. Just ways to kind of check in on people in different ways and hear from other leaders across the organization, more so than just the that were in their team or their business unit. There are a few other resources that we looked into, again, with the focus on engagement and wellness. And I think, I always say kind of go where the energy is. And, people were really communicative with us about what they needed and what they appreciated. And, as we checked in with them through these pulse surveys, the way they responded to how they thought we were responding, at the end of the day, honestly, it just felt like it was that common outreach that was the most welcomed, and just a lot of appreciation around the organization for that.
Thank you for sharing those communication strategies too. And I know, Marc, you mentioned Slack, and I'm going to go to Laura now, and I want to hear a little bit about how those changes were affected within our organization as well.
Yeah, so thank you, Sianna. So, as a small business owner, we had a few offices, and when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, we really had to make some shifts dramatically with some of our offices. I mean, we've had hundreds of people out working, and then overnight we had 50 people out working. So it was we took a real big hit. But with that being said, I was lucky enough to have Monarch had a couple of our offices were on month-to-month leases. And when speaking to the teams, we've always done Zoom interviews, and it was easy for us because in a snowstorm, we just had that platform and we always did this. This was just a bigger storm, a much bigger storm. It's lasting a lot longer. So we asked the teams, and they're like, what are we going to do? Sit in our offices and do Zoom interviews? Why don't we consolidate it, save what we can? So, we really pushed out and were able to consolidate some offices, have folks work remotely. And, my number one priority was making sure everyone was okay. It was overnight that, we were all working from our homes, and our homes were becoming our place of work. And it was strange in the beginning. And, our sales were down, and if you're not selling, you got to cut costs somewhere. And we asked all the employees, what can we do? How can we cut costs? People volunteered to work part-time. We did have to make some temporary layoffs in order to save the organization. It was difficult. It was hard. It was, is vulnerable. We had Zoom interviews, with everybody, meetings. And the one thing that we did as a team is that we all participated. And I remember early on, we wanted just to keep everybody okay. And is everybody okay? So we just decided that every day somebody would, share a morning inspiration to keep us all up and positive, and share an afternoon article, and then share something in the evening, like a professional development. And we all helped each other, I think, along the way. And that kind of really helped us kind of get through what we were dealing with. And, quickly, we turned to, yoga and wellness. We offered chair yoga for our clients and our temps and our candidates. And, we're out working. We did our Wednesday wellness. We used to have these things called walk-in Wednesdays, where we would have people come in and we would take their pictures for free and help them, with their LinkedIn profiles. Well, nobody's walking in anywhere now, right? So we had to do something different. And we did our wellness Wednesdays, and we did our chair yoga, and we kind of helped each other. So it was a time of just a lot of hard decisions, but being able to see the team and being able to kind of find out what's important for them and what do they need to help them feel safe and survive this. And it was a lot of and what I can think saved me was, number one, the team and the employees I have working for me. And then number two, my practice of literally just yoga a year before I found, and I was this yogi crazy woman, in 2019, and really kind of helped me with that. And I also, took some practice up with being mindfulness. And, those two things, I think they got me through it, along with my employees, or else, we wouldn't be on the other side. We gave up some commissions and things like that. And, later on in December 15th, we were lucky enough to make everybody whole and pay out those commissions. And, we got through it, but we had to make a lot of changes.
Well, you bring up a point about it is the teams, and Becky, you brought in that too, of engaging people and being a part of how they're going to make these changes. Brian, can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the communication strategies you've used in West, just to clarify that a little bit about, were there some people who had a difficulty making a big change? Looking back on it, is there some leadership decisions you made that helped you to thrive?
Yeah, I mean, the things that come to mind for me are really around touching people on a regular basis, and just reaching out. We talk about the whole person now. I mean, this really put the person back at the forefront for us, and really was purposeful in making sure that first that people were okay, and then, you know, getting on with the work. And so, you know, I think we've become much more empathetic and compassionate and understanding what people are going through at home, you know, however we can support them to, you know, to make sure they have what they need. We did things like, you know, minutes with managers, and really started with our senior executives, and you know, showed them in a more relaxed setting. You know, it was a lot of things were videotaped at home, and you know, maybe more casual clothes and things, and you know, showed the organization that, you know, we were all, you know, going through similar situations. I could remember one senior leader, you know, live on his, you know, hit the pause button on his Wi-Fi system in the house, and you can hear the kids screaming in the background, you know, that he was able to turn off their electronics, you know, and, you know, things like that, you know, we were able to share with people. We did go global with an EAP provider that we didn't have previously, you know, again, to help support people with their health and wellness. So yeah, some things on communication, some programs, but I think it all, you know, all these things needed to be put in place to get through this.
Yeah, I want to dig a little bit further into that with Brian. You mentioned how seeing people as a whole, and I think with all of the changes that have happened, I think the social unrest and the need to really address just what's been going on in the workplace and dealing with diversity. And Marc, I'm going to go to you first for this, because I know this is something that you're very passionate about. You're leading the community, and I'm sure you didn't have to change too much, because you probably already had some things in play. But I would love for you to just share a little bit about some of those strategies and how you engage your whole team in those in that idea of developing more diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging.
Sure. So the whole concept of an inclusive work environment is something that the company's kind of based on. So and we've kind of honed it and tuned it up over the years to the point where we've kind of institutionalized it. And that really kind of starts at the hiring process, right? So I tell every candidate comes through, asks what is needed to be successful here. And my answer always is empathy. You know, everybody on the team has to be empathetic, or else working in close proximity like this is not going to work. We also, part of our culture is a very open door kind of, I know it's cliche, but very open door, very communicative, over communicate kind of strategies. And I'm very transparent. I mean, we're a small team of like 25 people. So I'm very transparent about, you know, things that are going on that affect me personally and affect the business. So whenever we have kind of updates about COVID protocols, you know, we're following the CDC guidelines, we communicate those very clearly. So as far as making sure we maintain, we have a diverse workforce, and we maintain that by ensuring that we're selecting from a very wide selection of candidates. So right now, you know, what thing has changed now is that we're no longer doing in-person interviews, and we're no longer restricted geographically from who we hire. So now our last 5 people have not been from the Philadelphia area. So we're able to tap into a larger candidate pool, and the candidates that end up kind of getting to the final process want a situation like ours. They want to be able to work remotely for a company that really values what they bring to the team, and that empathy and that inclusion is part of the entire ethos. So the people are actually looking to work for companies like us. And so it's this kind of a self-satisfying circle in that way.
Thank you, Marc. I appreciate that. Let's go to Becky, because you had mentioned that you actually didn't even have that in place, and you really needed to add that. So you've really taken some time to you know, put some thought in creating that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, when honestly following George Floyd's death, where we were wanting to be as thoughtful and as engaging with the team as possible to recognize and acknowledge that people weren't okay and that we needed to check in with them. So it was a balance of navigating that and putting communications out to the organization that opened those doors and that dialogue, which it did. So that was really the start. We immediately scheduled, like within a week's time, we had planned on it by the end of the year, but clearly pulled it forward, unconscious bias sessions for the entire organization. So every employee, and basically fell short of calling it mandatory. And we pretty much had almost 100% attendance, but we had everyone go through that together in a very short time frame, and then scheduled dialogues, like leader dialogue, roundtable sessions to follow that. And again, that was another way. We all needed the same language to use to have conversations with each other, and putting everyone through the same session at the same time within a 2-week period of time. Now, granted, the size of our organization helped us to do that, but that was really meaningful. And then following that, or coming out of that, we had just asked if anyone's interested as we begin this journey for Amplity, please, kind of raise your hand and let us know. And, kind of went into the process with anyone's input and whatever, even if they want to just come into a meeting and listen, we wanted to be as inclusive as possible, and ended up pulling a group of people together that, we defined a vision statement and a mission, decided what our strategic priorities were going to be around. All of it, with really, aside from the unconscious bias sessions, no budget, really going on the energy of the organization and where the interest was, and wanting to do it in a way that wasn't just reacting to what was happening, so that, people really did feel that we were invested in it for the right reasons and trying to get to the right outcome. So we were able to define that. We did pull together a committee, we named, the group and pulled it together. And, I'm happy to say that we're moving forward and just launching our first colleague resource groups, like employee resource group, as well as our other priorities around business process, leadership, as well as culture and awareness. And there's a lot that we've been able to do with, quite frankly, not a big budget, and we're bringing a lot forward to the organization. We've opened up a really great dialogue. We're starting to have kind of open sessions, kind of like an Ask Me Anything, is what we're calling them, to play that forward. Again, it's not just about like programs or processes they want to put in place. It is that, but it's also about just maintaining this dialogue and environment and culture that people continually feel like we are moving forward, so that everyone that works for our organization and that we partner with can bring their best self to work. And that's really been our focus and our mission. And honestly, I will say that probably the most challenging and poignant conversations I've ever had in my life had been through that time and through that work. I think it just has completely shifted the way that we talk about what diversity and equity and inclusion really means, and in a way that hopefully will continue to have the impact that we'd all like to see.
I think navigating those conversations is so important as a leader, and the fact that you were able to do that, engaging people without a big budget, that is a really key point, because a lot of people who are tuning in today probably are saying, well, that might be a challenge. And it's really about the people, getting them together and getting them to talk. And so I think that you're hitting it right on with committees and people who are, it comes from them. They help to support what they create. That's how you create that culture. I think that's a really good point.
Of course, I'd love Marc's input and assessment on how well we've done, but maybe we'll save that for another time.
Yes.
I will challenge you to put some metrics up around it, right?
Yeah, the metrics are a part of it. Absolutely.
Good,
Yeah,
good,
each of those 4 pillars, the priorities that we set for the year, we're putting metrics against them, and we're really hoping to advance that not only for this year, but metrics are a huge part of it.
Yeah, and what
to help tell the story in a really important and data-based way.
Yeah, and what we've seen, what history tells us, right? It's cyclical. This interest in DEI, it comes, it goes. It's really exciting now. It's important, and then we forget about it in a few years. So what I'm hoping this moment is going to have an effect on us going forward as a society is that the emphasis on the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is not just going to be an afterthought, woke washing sort of thing that's just important for a couple of years and then it goes back under the radar again. So I think companies have to make a sustained commitment to this. Say at the beginning, we're going to do this for 5 years. We're going to do this for 10 years. We're not going to just do this until we're tired of doing it anymore. So
I don't know if you feel this way, Marc, but I feel like organizations are looking more deeply. So it's not just about, the unconscious bias training sessions or starting the conversation, but also we're looking really deeply at our business processes and making commitments to our business processes. So things that maybe wouldn't have had the attention or thought to be a part of that type of initiative before are almost driving what we're doing now.
I see that shift across the chamber member businesses. I see that shift palpably right now. But again, that shift is not to this degree, but shifts like this have happened before. Yeah. And the danger of being excited about how well we're doing right now has the danger of running out of steam, once people's intense laser focus is no longer on this. So I know it's becoming a priority within the business, it's becoming part of the business model, and that's new, but it could also be forgotten just as easily as it's been kind of ramped up. So that's the danger.
Fair. It's great point.
Brian, do you have anything you wanted to add in that area?
I mean, we've also taken an active position on which is new for us, right? I mean, there's a few topics here, but the political environment, we made it clear to folks that, the workplace was not where we are, to be talking about our political views. But on the flip side, we had an active campaign and used our affinity networks to really get the message out to encourage people to get out and vote. So, a delicate balance, but something that we thought was important. And some of these incidents that have happened, whether it's George Floyd or the incidents in, Atlanta recently, we've come out and made active statements against these types of things, and that we have to be that we have to embrace diversity, and again, there's these types of discrimination or anything like that isn't acceptable. And that's, these are additional layers of things that have been on this past year, right? It hasn't been just the pandemic. It's been all of these on top of one another, which has taken their toll. I was thinking when folks were talking that, we were doing daily or multiple times a week stand-up meetings just to check in on people. To make sure they're okay. And I honestly believe, a couple things, we talk about One West, and that's always something we've been working toward. And these crises actually have brought us closer together as an organization, and that we are really working better together. And more on an individual basis, I would say that we actually know one another much better than we did previously, which is interesting because we have gone virtual and remote in many cases. So it's a little counterintuitive, but some of the blessings that have come out of this.
I would agree with that. Laura, I would love to have you talk a little bit more, even how you we did something, we did a training together and really helped us understand and get to know each other more. And I don't want to take what you were going to say away,
Yeah.
but I just thought if you have a chance to talk about that vulnerability training that we did, I just really think that would be a great
Yeah, I mean,
segue for this too as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sianna. And I think, when everything came out with the Black Lives Matter, I mean, initially, I mean, just talking to our Black employees, I mean, I heard things that I never heard before that were very shocking to me, and was shared throughout our Zoom sessions that just were very, very eye-opening, and now more attuned and definitely more aware. And one thing that we've done, and we pledged back in 2019, after I attended a diversity meeting down at Drexel University, I heard a gentleman speak by the name of Javier Avila, and he spoke and he gives a talk about the trouble with my name. And as a staffing agency, it was really important for me to take a stance back in 2019 when I heard him. It resonated, and I said, you know what? When we send candidates to our clients, we are removing the name of the candidate. Just get it out and put the candidate number. And throughout 2019, as I was sharing this with my companies we were working with, the HR and the talent people were like, oh my gosh, we're going to now start to do this internally. So the HR folks and the talent people were now pushing that out internally and saying, you know what, if you can do it, we can even do it internally. And let's get rid of the unconscious bias or any kind of bias that's with a name, because it has happened way too often with so many people, and I was just done with it. So we made that change. And in addition, Sianna spoke about our trainings that we did. It was really important for us to develop as a team, I think, more of an internal trust. And we did some trainings with Dana Riker around the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and helped us kind of pull things together and improve our communications. So, and to this day, as a staffing agency, we are always been in tune to using diversity recruitment networks to get the best candidate available. But that presentation changed in 2019, and we have vowed to stick with it and are pushing it out. I lost clients because of it, but you know what? That's just the way it is, and that's my ethics, and that's what our integrity is, and that's what we're standing up for. So, made
Marc,
some changes.
Can I just get you to jump in on one point? And that is, a lot of people say, I would love to have better hiring practices. I would love to have more diversity. I would love to. Can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the practical, workable strategies that people can use to really help to grow this? So
Well, that's the one
is
thing they can
happening
do.
across
I mean,
the
just
board,
take the
right?
name off the resume. Just a simple, easy thing, removing the name and removing any kind of unconscious bias. That's something that all employers can do instantaneously to help bring the best candidate to light, and without having that biased. I don't know if Marc
100%.
wants to weigh
And
in.
also, one other thing I
Absolutely,
would,
Laura. Thank
one
you.
of the things that we had to add to our, we had to kind of revamp our kind of hiring pipeline process. Anonymizing the candidate pool, we haven't been able to do that. I think that's a great idea, especially if that's your what you do. What we changed was we made sure that there wasn't a single pinch point in the process. So we have culture fit is such important to an organization like ours. We actually have like 3 phase gates, and we made sure that different people got to, there wasn't just one person making a decision at any one point. So we instituted that because we discovered that, I'm big old Black gay guy married to a white dude. I figured we're not gonna have any unconscious bias at all. We're gonna be perfect. And when we looked at our process, like, why aren't we hiring any veterans? Oh, because one of our persons had a personal issue, and we didn't realize that until we really looked at our process. So what we did was we made sure that different eyes and different perspectives were to play in every kind of decision point in the hiring practice. So we diversified our views, our opinions on people who are advanced through it.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing that we've done and helped job seekers with is when we read their resumes, if there's anything on the resume that would scream out some sort of reason to screen people out, we've asked them to remove it from their resume. Our job is we want people to give them an opportunity to screen them in, not to screen them out. So we've helped job seekers in that area as well. Yep.
Yeah, let's talk a little more about recruiting strategies. I think that's a great thing to go into as well. Becky, will you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of all of the questions, we haven't changed much in that respect. I would say, aside from doubling down on our diversity, equity, inclusion partnerships that we had some, we just went a little bit deeper there. But so much of what we already had been doing, we had been doing virtually anyway. The only thing that's really kind of lifted or shifted, I'd say, dramatically for us, and I think it was Marc that mentioned it earlier, we're looking at geography very, very differently. And that being agnostic in that respect has just opened up a whole nother discussion about talent pools that we can tap into, the way that we engage. And that's been brilliant, honestly, for hiring at all levels of the organization since. We did, obviously you shift some things around when you're doing an orientation, you're not actually going to be seeing anybody in person. So, we've tried to send, like care package boxes, like done some and get more engaging things just to kind of get it together. And we've made even more of an effort with like onboarding sessions and meetings so that people come together in more casual settings, not just in, kind of formal one-to-one. So just some of the, like getting to know the personality of the company comes forward. Like we would always have Bagel Wednesdays in the office, just as an example. So that was a great way when new people would join. It's just, chit chat, nobody, no real agenda, obviously. So we tried to layer some things into the onboarding practice that would help to institute that, but nothing really changed at the core in terms of our tools and practice, because a lot of it was, I think, similar to Marc, done remotely anyway.
So just so I can be aware of our time, I just wanted to really drill down, since this is about Thrive, I want you to think about some of the leadership changes that happened as based on what we were talking about, all these different aspects of 2020, that you take yourself back to that moment where you made some hard decisions, and now you see the fruit of it. You see how you're thriving as a result. Because there may be some people on our in our audience and as attendees today who said, well, I didn't put some of these changes in place and I didn't do those things. So I want to give them, some positive working strategies that have really been successful, where you see, oh, because we did this as a team, I now see this benefit from it. I know for our smaller team, I will say that even though we had closed some of our brick and mortar places and we kept one place, but we kind of streamlined all together, we all as a team say that we know each other better, we're less in silos, and we're more connected as a team since all this happened. So that's an example of how we were resilient, at Monarch. But, I'd love for you guys to just kind of share some of those things so that the other leaders on this call can think, okay, what can I do today that will make it change for the rest of 2021? We're only in quarter 2, people. It's okay. So let's talk about some of those workable strategies. Let's kind of do a quick roundtable so we make sure we get to all the questions if the audience has them. So why don't I can start with Laura today. Good.
Yeah, I think for me, looking back, the one thing that I did as just, and you can do now today as a leader, is just, number one, just be available for your team. I did take out Tuesdays with my team, and I sent them their favorite lunch on Tuesday. And, each Tuesday I just had an opportunity to speak with them. So I think as a leader and managers and, the folks in leadership, just be available and listen, let their voices be heard, let your employees' voices be heard. I think more so now than ever before. Trust and empower your teams is really important. Don't manage the input. You got to manage the output, the outcomes. Things are changing. People don't work now between the hours of 8 and 5. They work sometimes afternoons. They work sometimes late in the day. Parents need to run their kids somewhere, or not even run them. They're actually having to be the technology expert on Zoom to get their kids up and running, to teach them, so yeah, Becky's one of them, right? So, you got to be okay and give your employees permission to do that. It's no more about the 9 to 5. We have to think of work differently and the way in which we work differently. I think that's really important. And really give yourself permission as leaders. It's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen, but I do think, you know, being authentic and, you know, leading in an area of vulnerability. I remember myself just saying, you know what, this is what we need to do to make it. This is how we have to do it, and kind of just being transparent and letting people know where we are and keeping that communication open. Being, you know, showing the empathy. We all talked about that, and being concerned. You know, and I think I had one more other thing. I think I got them all. All right, I was looking at my notes here. I had it all written down. But there's some real easy things that you can do as leaders and managers to really help your team and help your organizations grow. So
I appreciate that. Brian, tell us about, did you make any leadership big decisions that you can see? Tell us about that.
Well, these are things that are in progress right now, and I think there are a lot of little decisions, but the concern is around fatigue. And so, you know, and we've heard repeatedly that people are saying, look, I'm just back to back to back to back, like, you know, and because now I think more formal meetings have been put on the calendar because you're not just walking down the hall to talk to somebody. So we're going to be coming out and being active about trying to clear calendars. We're going to say, you know, like there's core meeting hours from like 9 to 4, no meetings during lunch.
Right.
Do 50-minute meetings, not hours. You know, people don't have time to take a break between one meeting to the next. 20-minute meetings rather than a half hour.
Awesome.
Meeting-free Fridays. You know, different things like this to give people a chance to breathe and to actually think, and you know, take a break and actually do work. You know, that's the problem. If you're in meetings all day long, you're not actually doing your job or the work content that needs to get done. So that's the area that we're going to be focusing on here going forward.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to interject one thing, and I just changed at Monarch from our Takeout Tuesdays because we were sitting in front of the screen, Brian. Just like you said, you were launching Walk With Me Wednesdays. Get off the screen and let's take a walk and talk, right? Just do something.
Get
Screen
outside.
fatigue is a real thing. So, and not every meeting needs to be on Zoom. It could be a phone call.
True.
It could be a chat. Yep.
Marc, how did you change your leadership style, or what decisions did you make that helped you thrive?
Well, kind of to Laura's point, and everyone's point, we have to really get into this whole asynchronous manner of work. We don't all work at the same time in the same place on the same things. We are a type of industry where we can be outcomes measured, deadlines measured. Doesn't matter when people do the work, as long as they come to those few meetings they actually have to be in. But lots of meetings can just be Slacks now, right? Well, my biz dev team is in California. We have something due, a pretty big proposal due in a couple of hours. They're working on their time. I jump in on when I can. So that's one thing, getting into really asynchronous work. But the check-ins are really important. What we found about the check-ins, the two C-suite folks, a tiny company again, check in with everybody once a month, and we have 5 standard questions. It usually takes like 3 minutes. In the beginning, it was like, you know, are you okay? Are you safe? You know, is anybody? Do you have to take off time to care for anyone who's sick with COVID? Now it's more like, you know, again, are you safe? But do you have everything you need? And what we really found was everybody wanted their office chair, right? So that was not a big accommodation. So some folks, we just met them because we put everything in storage when we got rid of the one unit, and we just met people in storage, got them their chairs, and they're like, oh, my work day is so much better. They wanted extra monitors, so they came and got their extra monitors from work. So making sure that their home office was as technologically and ergonomically as efficient as they would have been in the office was a really big step for us, or a really kind of showed a lot of return.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, we did the same.
Yeah. One other thing from you, Becky, and then we want to hear from our audience.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just share quickly, similar to what Brian was sharing. You know, we've tried to think about people's time. through the lens of wellness, through the lens of, productivity. So we implemented a Take Back Tuesday. It actually started coming out of the presidential election. We implemented for that day, no meetings. We wanted to make sure people could get out and vote, and shared it with the company globally and just said, we're just not going to have any company-based meetings. We got so much positive response from that, not about the voting part, but just the, oh my gosh, I could think, oh my gosh, I got so much work done. It's the most productive day I've had. So we are now doing that weekly. So there are no company-based meetings on Tuesdays, which has gotten a tremendous, it's changing the culture of meetings, which is the most important. And it's hard because you have to get in a Zoom if you want to connect with people. So anyway, that's working great. We also last summer decided to do what we call the Summer Love. So I don't know if we'll do it every year, but just people were really, really tired and really struggling at that point. So it was basically like a combination of either every other Friday off throughout the summer, or if you wanted to take half-day Fridays. And we did that for June through August. The other organizational strategy I'd say that's been really impactful is we have very strategically focused and targeted managers of people. And so we've directed a lot of our efforts. We're really trying to push a culture of feedback and educating our managers on performance check-ins that are just, checking in on, well-being as well as performance, providing candid and feedback. But anything that we're doing in the organization, we're directing and really, really tightly engaging that manager community, assuming and hoping, and we're starting to see that ripple effect will really have an impact from an engagement perspective across the organization. So we have a monthly leadership toolkit that we push out, and sometimes it's has resources for strategies that we're putting forward. Other times it's just resources in general, something that we might pull from LinkedIn Learning, which we partner with. But again, just engaging that group almost as a cohort in a way that hopefully will direct and have a larger impact across the whole of the organization. It's been really meaningful so far.
That's great. And I would love to, if you want to each just share, what is one book or a resource that, I guess that was meaningful to you, that was inspirational to you, that you can recommend to our audience who'd love to be able to get some good reading materials and ideas for them.
I was going to give a plug for a local Philly company. Like I mentioned, wellness. We partnered with On the Go-Ga. They're a Philly-based company, really focused on wellness. If anyone's interested in kind of checking them out, they've got like a wealth of resources available. Obviously, you pay for it, but found them to be fairly reasonable and had some really great wellness resources that were more locally based. So it was really impactful to our local folks.
Wow. Anything, Marc, you want to add a last thought or inspire us?
We have and actually Lindsay's on the call and she does this. So has this idea of just kind of showing a little bit of appreciation. So every once in a while we send local stuff, like we'll send a employee anniversary gift card from 4th Street Cookie, or we'll send them Dunkin' Donuts gift certificates on certain things. So there's this kind of we're supporting the local business by doing that, hopefully as much as possible. But then for little stuff, we just kind of try to keep engaged with her and say thank you all the time. As far as business resources, I love the content coming out of Harvard Business Review. Their DEI content is really good. So if there's that's kind of where I start a lot of my research about my approach to things, and then kind of go off to their deeper research when I have time. But HBR is a great resource.
Thank you. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I liked the earlier points about, trying to interject fun and so, yeah, we do some fun facts of the day, and we've also done Jeopardy and some things like that to try to liven it up, lighten it up. I myself personally, I'm currently reading Is This Anything from Jerry Seinfeld. I love Jerry Seinfeld, and to this point, I just need something to lighten things up. I mean, everything has been so heavy, so for my personal balance, that's something I try to do on a daily basis, is just read a little bit from that and get some humor. So
I love that. Laura, any inspirational ideas you can share?
For us, oh my gosh. I think you just have to, we set up some fun Slack channels. We have a Slack initiative channel that, with our company, it's called our CFOs. They're our chief fun officers. And once a month, they are doing all kinds of crazy fun things with us. St. Patrick's Day, we had our first Monarch variety show. That was very interesting on Zoom and showing all of our talents, even if it was a fun how to make your quick coffee fix. We had our first crazy Zoom holiday party. And then we also have some initiatives with our wellness. We have a wellness committee now, and we're doing our March to Wellness. So we're sharing some inspirational things around, mind, body, soul. And these things don't cost anything to do. Like, Becky mentioned things you can do on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
And then, we have our veterans initiative. So we're working on some things like that. But
Yeah.
I'm a McKinsey junkie. So I kind of read the McKinsey things all the time, and they always have some great, articles. I just love them. And on my nightstand is a new book I'm reading, a recommendation from Dana Riker, one of our trainers. It's called Wired to Resist. And it's about, how we're so focused on not being able to change and why change fails. And, through some of those insights, you can kind of learn about, how you can successfully manage and get through change. So that seems to be a really good book. And and Sienna's favorite is Simon Sinek. So I've seen a lot of his YouTube things and everything. And he's a great one too for inspiration.
Well, thank you all so much for your time for this conversation. It was just really great to hear some of the things that you guys have put in place, and just to share some of your thoughts and stories today. We really appreciate it. This is the third part of our webinar series, and actually we're launching a new webinar series. And this new webinar series, for those who are on the call, this is going to be really focusing on getting people who are in a job seeking or in transitioning through, either because they've been caring for a loved one or they're coming back from the military as the veterans thing. So we're going to be focusing on April 22nd. We're going to be kind of combating the she session. I'm sure some of you guys, many have seen that there are almost 2.2 million women out of work because of some of the changes that have happened. So we really wanted to really focus that effort first. And so that's April 22nd. So if you know any job seekers who would like to introduce, please let them know and share with your neighbors all about our new webinar series. On the May 20th, we'll also be doing the part 2, and that's going to focus on our grads. So we're going to get those students that are, transitioning into the workplace, which we need them. We know that there's a, big shifts happening, and we need more workers to get into the workplace. And then also June 24th, we're going to focus on veterans. So, and on a side note, I did get a chance to sing for my team, which was really fun. So being able to just share some of those other dormant parts of you as an employee, it's just, it kind of brings joy. I got to sing You've Got a Friend, so the Carole King version. So that was super fun. But you all have been amazing today. Thank you for your time. The audience, some of the questions that they sent ahead of time, we had already kind of covered, so we didn't really need to cover too many of those, but we have 1 minute. So I just wanted to say thank you, and go take a breath and go enjoy, go step outside. Have a great day.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone. Yep, nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.